Hello, boxing fans around the world. Thank you for joining me once again here on Talk and Fight for another episode of Boxing News Today. And today I'm going to start you off with a boxing, non-boxing related incident that took place on a professional Major League Baseball playing field the other day between a couple of teams, and most importantly, between a couple of players and eventually all players. And it was called a brawl. And it started out between a couple of players. You may not know their names, but Jose Ramirez and Tim Anderson, whereby Jose Ramirez, in his scuffle with Tim Anderson, caught him with a right hook and scored, shall we say, a technical knockout, which therefore enabled the brawl, the on-field brawl, to erupt in the middle of a baseball game in America, live on TV. I'm not sure how many people were watching, but it certainly was, frankly, exciting for the fans based on the noise. And you can Google that. I should have put the link in the description, but I forgot. Doesn't really matter. It's all over the internet right now because uh, baseball and boxing don't typically go hand in hand, quote quote unquote. But in this case, I just thought I'd intro the show with a bit of cute, fun, interesting stories that I found. Anyway, another interesting story erupting is the whole Dillian White episode. He, just like Connor Benn, has been found undeemed, not fit to fight due to the analysis based on the mandatory drug tests that have to take place over in the UK. DAZN CEO Joe Murkowski gave an update on the Anthony Joshua status regarding a possible replacement for their upcoming tilt, which is now canceled, but they are probably looking for someone else to fill White's shoes. Who that will be is an interesting equation because there are more than enough suitors to fill Dillian White's shoes, but they're not what DAZN truly want in terms of generating pay-per-view numbers. A good example might include, for example, from a British perspective, Derek Chisora. But that would have absolutely no effect whatsoever in North America. No one would care, and DAZN would not score the dough that they want to score. So my recommendation might be Jared, the real big baby Anderson. Andy Ruiz Jr. maybe, Makhmudov, Frank Sanchez maybe. Anyway, there are some people who could be pulled into that fight against Anthony Joshua on such short notice if they're prepared and if willing and able to fight Joshua. And I just thought I'd bring that to your attention. Pay-per-view really regulates whether or not fights happen. It's not just people like me saying how important or unimportant these things are. It's really important to the sport of boxing. Pay-per-view, live streaming, it's happening on a local level and it's happening on an international level. And when it comes to DAZN, they want to see fights that matter, not just simply British versus British fighters. Now, speaking of, shall we say, American fighters, Jake Paul got in the ring, as you know, with Nate Diaz and won. But what was interesting is the pay-per-views. Because, as we all know, Jake Paul has a substantial history in terms of generating a huge online audience and viewership for his various clips over the years, but not so much for his boxing in quotations fights against the likes of who was the first guy he fought? Nate Robinson, the basketball player. Then he took on Woodley a couple of times and Askren. Pretty well burned out MMA fighters, and he beat Diaz, who put up a good fight, or maybe a good show would be a better word, for his fans in the audience and online, which doesn't seem like it amounted to much. For example, in Jake Paul's first bout against Tyron Woodley, they sold roughly 500,000 pay-per-views. But the rematch brought in only 65,000 pay-per-views. So, Jake Paul's numbers, if you will, are going down. His paydays are great, but his numbers in terms of pay-per-views are definitely on a decline. So it'd be interesting to see what the pay-per-views for the Nate Diaz fight were or are. I'm not sure we'll ever know, but it has been reported they are less than 1 million, greater than 500,000. We'll wait and see. With respect to that particular fight, that bout that took place on the undercard, we saw Amanda Serrano take on Heather Hardy and win. A decent, absolutely decent female in the ring. And she's now 45-2-1 with 30 knockouts and retains her undisputed featherweight championship. And by the way, she's actually good friends with Heather Hardy. Another fighter on that card, Shadisha Green, scored a unanimous decision over 10 rounds over her opponent, Olivia Curry, 99-91, 190, and 189. So it was a strong showing for Green, who's now 13-0 with 11 knockouts, by the way, and is something that I'm sure MVP, Most Valuable Promotions, are pretty happy with, especially seeing that Clarissa Shields is calling her out. But that will be interesting to see if that happens, But she's definitely a contender because there aren't many in their weight class, 160, 168, the other being the UK champ, Savannah Marshall. So we'll have to see what happens with her career moving forward. But the fella who also was on the undercard, who scored a really decent knockout, Ashton Silva, also signed to MVP, I might add. He knocked out William Silva. It was a terrific showing for the 19-year-old Silva, who's now got an undefeated 10-0 record with 9 knockouts. And so regardless of his management by Jake Paul, it's actually, as a boxer, he needs to be taken quite seriously. He's obviously got the speed, the power, and the skills, and great composure for someone that's so young. So anyway, he dropped, as I said, William Silva, who's got a 30-5 record, 18 knockouts, in the second round with a body shot, and then went for the knockout later in the fourth. So keep him on your radar. He's someone to look out for. Elsewhere around the world, over in Baltimore, Maryland, you might have been familiar with our stories over the past few weeks about Tank Davis. Well, I did not realize that Tank Davis has a promotions company. And let me just read what Vince, the writer over at BoxingNews24.com, has to say in this interesting article. I find it interesting because I've been saying for a long time, these boxers who make a lot of money, if they want to maintain the popularity of the sport and grow the popularity of the sport, perhaps should invest some of their well-earned money into young fighters. Well, here's a case where that has actually happened. The writer writes, Dominic Dimes Crowder and Mia Killer B. Ellis both won titles in their hometown at the GTD Challenge, which took place at the Coppin State University Physical Education Complex in Baltimore, Maryland. The event marked the promotional debut of Nikki Cobbs and Brandy Murphy of Bad Girl Promotions as they collaborated with Calvin Ford and Kenny Ellis of GTD, which is Gervonta Tank Davis Promotions. The GDT Challenge was a very entertaining event that consisted of amateur fights, pro debuts, and a couple of promising prospects receiving the opportunity to fight for a title. Kicking off the main card was Mayweather Promotions' highly touted welterweight prospect and Washington, D.C. native Jalil Major Hackett, as he defeated Jorge Sosa. Hackett immediately set the tone in the first round by getting inside, landing accurate shots, and displaying good punch placement. Let me have a quick read here. In the co-main event, the hometown favorite who developed her skills at the Upton Boxing Center, Mia Killer B. Ellis, who I mentioned earlier, is now 7-1 with 6 knockouts, beating Jessica Emmerich, and in the process won the National Boxing Association lightweight title. Good for her. Jessica Emmerich, no slouch. Was having a good fight and throwing her best offense, but got caught with a counter left hook that sent her to the canvas and abruptly put an end to her night. Anyway, a vacant title belt was up for grabs as well in the main event as Baltimore native Dominic Dimes Crowder scored a unanimous decision victory over Filipino boxer Kenny Demishilo. He's 17-7-2 with 10 knockouts. And in the process, Crowder won the WBA International Bantamweight title. And that was, let's see, round after round. Other than that, in other results from the night, sorry, I'm just jumping forward. It's a lengthy article. Rafael Yari, 1-1, defeated Christopher Wright by second round knockout. Super middleweight Sean Silky Hemphill, 16-1, by the way, dominated Christian Thomas, 11-4, and got the 6-round stoppage. 2 super featherweights made their pro debuts as Damari Filson, now 1-0, defeated Adarian Edwards, 0-1, by way of first-round stoppage. After being punished by Filson throughout the opening round, Edwards informed the referee that he didn't want to continue. A pair of middleweights also made their pro debuts as Monier Gregory, 1-0, defeated Jamorian Smith, 0-1, by first-round knockout. It took Gregory less than 30 seconds to land a devastating right hand, followed by a vicious left uppercut that instantly put a halt to the contest. So congratulations to all involved, not only in the fights, but those who organized and administrated those fights as well. I will reach out to those people and see if they're interested in having the crew from Talking Fight live stream upcoming events. Hopefully they'll be interested, and hopefully the rest of the world will be able to see those fights live as they happen. Good stuff from Gervonta Tank Davis. Over in Massachusetts, history was made at Polar Park, the home of the Boston Red Sox AAA affiliate, the Worcester Red Sox, the Woo Sox as they're known, which hosted its very first boxing event in their stadium. It's called Punch Out at Polar Park, under the stars at its award-winning minor league ballpark. The Punch Out at Polar Park Pro-Am card was presented by Shearns Boxing Promotions, who I mentioned last week, in conjunction with Kendrick's Balls Camp Get Right. It certainly took a lot of hard work from a lot of good people, including my partner, Kendrick Ball Sr., and my family, SBP President Chuck Shearns said. It was a historical event, and I hope everybody had a good time. It was fantastic stuff because Kendrick Ball Jr. pitched a shutout at the venue that helped build as a union construction worker. Wow, cool. Hometown hero, Kendrick Papa Ball Jr., 21-1-3, 12 knockouts, sent the fans home happy. As I said, pitching a shutout in the main event versus Oscar Maestro Royosas, 28-17-3, 60 knockouts, winning by scores of 80-72 3 times. Ball had, in a workmanlike strategy, outboxing his Mexican opponent and then breaking him down in the final 2 rounds. Riojas proved to be a crafty southpaw with invaluable experience, having fought world champions Carlos Gongora, Irishman Joseph Ward, and top contender Diego Pacheco. Leading up to the fight, said Ball Jr., that fighting at home in the first boxing event at Polar Park wasn't my focus. Now it means a lot to me to accomplish what I want to and have my fans watch and make some new fans too. Needless to say, I will be contacting Shearns Boxing as well to see if they also would like Talking Fight crews down to help live stream their events and show the world what kind of talent they are bringing up through the ranks. BoxingNews24.com has another story by Dan Ambrose. Upcoming fight between Emmanuel Navarrete and Oscar Valdez, who will be going to war this Saturday night in a 12-rounder, expected to be a firefight, is being shown on ESPN. It's being held at the Desert Diamond Arena in Glendale, Arizona. Navarrete, 37-1, 31 knockouts, looked a little sloppy earlier this year in capturing the vacant WBO super featherweight title with a ninth-round knockout of Liam Wilson last February. Although Navarrete got the win, he was stopped and apparently technically unsound, getting knocked down in the fourth by Wilson and hammered until the Aussie gassed out after the fifth. ESPN and ESPN Plus, speaking of live stream, will show the Navarrete versus Valdez event as happening this Saturday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Let's see if there's anyone on the undercard here. Oh, by the way, Valdez has fought far superior opposition than Navarrete, with wins over these fighters: Scott Quigg, Robson Canseco, Miguel Belchelt, Shakur Stevenson, Genesis Cervania, and Adam Lopez. Here's the undercard. It's well stocked with lightweight contender Raymond Murtala fighting Diego Torres Nunez in a chief support bout, and 2020 U.S. Olympian heavyweight Richard Torres Jr. battling Willie Jake Jr. Good stuff. Another undercard action, we're going to see Lindolfo Delgado take on Jair Valterra, Sergio Rodriguez against Eduardo Ayala, Antonio Morales versus Jajon Callaway, Emmanuel Vargas versus Jorge Alvarado, and Richard Ruvalcaba will be fighting someone to be announced at a later date. Said Joe Tessitore at Top Rank Boxing. He said, "You want to talk about a fight between Emmanuel Navarrete and Oscar Valdez? That'll be an absolute war," he said. So we look forward to the results on that fight. Elsewhere, Chordale the Gift Booker, 19-1, realizes that he's at a pivotal moment in his career. The 32-year-old is in the final stages of preparation to defend his WBC U.S. Super Welterweight title for the first time against Nicolas Hernandez. 27-6-3, by the way, 12 knockouts. The bout serves as the main event of the massive pro and amateur card taking place on August 12th at the Mohegan Sun Arena in Uncasville, Connecticut. It'll be the third fight of 2023 for the Stanford native, who appreciates the activity CES Boxing is providing him after fighting only once a year in 2020, 2021, and 2022. Says Booker, I haven't fought this many times since 2018. Activity goes a long way for a fighter like me because I build on whatever I did in my last fight. In training camp, we build on whatever went well and work on what didn't go well that I need to improve on. A lot has improved for Booker, who's looking to make it 3 wins in a row now after a disappointing knockout loss to Austin Ammo Williams back in 2022. And looking back at that fight, Chordale realizes that he took the opportunity at a higher weight class for the money and exposure that a big fight at Madison Square Garden would bring. What he hadn't considered was how inactivity could impact his performance on fight night. He said, "I was off for a while before that fight. I tore my Achilles, and then COVID happened. I rushed things. Instead of taking on guys I could beat and get my rhythm back, I wanted to jump right in there and fight guys on the same level as when I left. But I was no longer at that level. I need to build back to where I was before." And so that experience may have been a blessing in disguise. It marked a turning point for Booker, who knew that he'd cut some corners leading up to that fight and need to rededicate himself more fully to the sport to reach his full potential. Let's see here if I've got anything else. Wow, it's a long story. You might find all that story if you care to. worldboxingnews.net. And he'll be fighting, as I say, in a couple of days, taking on Nicolas Hernandez. Elsewhere, and for the final story of the day, I'm going to talk about Keith Thurman, who's been in the news recently, mainly due to a battle of the sexes has been thrown at him, but that's really not his cup of tea. He would really like to fight either Jaron Boots Ennis or, of course, Crawford, Terrence Crawford. He goes, the need to reach, let's see, this is on BoxingScene.com. The need to reach Boxing Summit is evident for Jaron Ennis, but while he's effortlessly pushing away the welterweight contender after welterweight contender, he hasn't quite reached his goals. Wins over Thomas Delorme, Sergey Lipnitz, and most recently Roman Villa have been helpful, but Ennis has a particular fighter in mind that he would like to face. Of course, the 26-year-old is hoping to land a showdown against newly undisputed champ Terence Crawford. However, Keith Thurman has always been pertinent to the career of Ennis. The former unified title holder hasn't said much of late, but he's heard Ennis 31-0, 28 knockouts, loud and clear. Although he understands the young Philly star has tons of skills and a growing fan base, Thurman, who's 30-1, 22 knockouts, reminded the current IBF interim champ that where he wants to go, he's been there for several years now. Said Thurman, he's still climbing. I've been up here. While Thurman has remained one of welterweight's elites, it appears only a matter of time before Ennis joins him. The slick switch hitter has looked practically untouchable, mercilessly stopping normally durable contenders. His handiwork, while impressive, isn't striking any fear into the heart of Thurman, although activity hasn't exactly been a strong suite of late, that's for sure. Fighting just 3 times in a 6-year span, Thurman does remember what it's like to take the O of a hot name from the city of brotherly love. Of special note to Tim Witherspoon, our cohort on the Friday night panel. In March of 2017, the now 33-year-old fought toe-to-toe with Danny Garcia. The former 2-division champ from Philadelphia may have turned up his aggression in the later rounds, but it was Thurman who eked out the win. From his point of view, facing Ennis is no different. With an undefeated record against Philly fighters, albeit a small sample size, Thurman views a matchup against Ennis as essentially analogous to a showdown versus Garcia. He said, in conclusion, like I ain't beat up no Philly boys before. It ain't nothing new to me. Try my best. All right, there you go, sports fans. Appreciate it. Remember, like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. We'll see you later on. Thank you for joining me here on Talk and Fight. Appreciate it.